The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you interviews with the 4 candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any candidates for public office. The preliminary election is Tuesday, September 19th. I'm June Michaels, a Rockport resident and League member. The candidate with me is Gloucester's current mayor, Greg Verga, in his first term after serving 6 years on the City Council and 8 years on the school committee. My first question is, what one accomplishment in your first term are you most proud of and why?
Well, I think there have been several, but if you had to pick one, it would probably be our stance on the new sewer treatment plant. Not an exciting or sexy subject, but it's an issue that's been kicking around for decades, 4 decades to be exact. The city's been on a waiver for all that time, and other mayors had the good fortune to be able to kick the can down the road. When I stepped into office, the feds were really fed up with us doing that. So we told them we were going to work on this. I put $10 million of the opera funds towards this, and in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll have a new sewer plant in the works and hopefully operational. So again, not a sexy thing, but we all have to flush.
I'm an infrastructure person. I like sewer plants.
But that makes one of us.
So, for your next term, what would be your number one priority?
Well, we've had a lot of things that we inherited. You know, whether it was the pier in Magnolia, whether it was the softball field at Green Street Playground that was moved from Mado's Field, whether it was the road repairs that needed to be done. So finally getting those things in place, we're ready to look forward to the next thing. So things like electrifying the bus fleet, getting some EV charging stations around town. We did recently hire, 10 months ago, a sustainability coordinator she's been basically keeping her eye on everything related to sustainability. We have 63 miles of coastline, so we're very vulnerable. So that's kind of by necessity at the top of the agenda, because we have to be prepared, you know, not just for the next term, but for the next decade and decades beyond.
So now that the new elementary school is a reality, what would be your number one priority as mayor for education?
Well, eventually we're going to get to the point where we have to look at Beeman and Plum Cove. So when I was on the school committee, we had 5 or 6 elementary schools, and we're down to 4 now. With the brand new school or East Vest, we have the school from 2016 at West Parish, and as I said, Beeman and Plum Cove. Beeman was built in 1958, I believe. Plum Cove, 1968, 69. Those are dog years in terms of buildings, and we've been doing a great job over the last few years, fixing them up, doing improvements where we could. But the fact is, they are not built for today's education. So we just start planning ahead of when are we going to do that. This is probably 4 or 5 years down the road before we even can start to consider it. But those are the big things for education. Obviously, the expansion of the vocational school at the high school is a reality now. 2 years ago, in the budget, we did add a director for the vocational department, which was holding us back. Not having a director meant we couldn't add a 5th program. So now, by next school year, we should have the beginnings of a medical assisting program, and something that's not traditionally a program that is more traditionally for females. You know, and though we do have females in the other 4 programs. So when we were looking at what programs to add, that one checked all the boxes. A job for tomorrow, a job that's not traditionally for females, and it's something that is in need, and something that's in demand right now as far as the students. So I'm excited about that. Our education is, you know, it's the key. It's so cliche, but the children are our future. You know, I hate the song and I hate the saying, but the fact is, you know, we need to build now for tomorrow, and those are 2 of the things that are going to get us there. This new program in the vocational department and planning ahead for the next school consolidation.
So in 2014, the city created its municipal harbor and designated port area master plan. And it was supposed to go for 10 years, which means at the end of 2024, it will be up for review and revision. How do you think the area should be preserved? Public waterfront, developed for new industries, for the commercial fishery. What do you think is the best use of the harbor?
The harbor plan is in its final stages now. We should be getting it, the review back from the state. It's something we've got to do. The designated port area is always a tricky one. We, the city of Gloucester, only own 2 parcels. The I-4C2 parcel, which has been used as parking for 10 years, and then a parcel on Commercial Street we took through tax title over the last 5 years or so, after I left city council, before I became mayor.
Mm-hmm.
The designated port area limits what you're able to do by right in that area, which stretches from Harbor Loop to down to St. Peter's Square, and there were parts of East Gloucester. So I'm not ready to, say, throw in the towel for the DPA. It does serve a purpose. We also have our own marine industrial zoning there. But our lot, our parcel, I-4C2, when I was on the city council, we purchased it. I stated then, and I've stated many times since then, I didn't vote to buy a parking lot. You know, we bought it to take it out of the private hands where it was basically decades old, I guess overgrown. The owner wasn't interested in doing anything. He had tried to do a project in the early 80s. There was pushback from the city, so he basically said, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. We had the opportunity in 2010-ish to buy it. I fully supported it, and we did. One thing that I do not think is a good fit there is a performance center, which was proposed. I do not support that. But we have other things. You know, we have biotech, which is an allowable use there. But I want to see that get out to the world to say, we have this parcel available. What would you like to see happen there? We attempted it when we first bought it, but nothing happened, and we've sort of got addicted to the parking. So we really need to do a lot of work on that. We have to make sure the harbor plan, which takes that into consideration, is approved, and then we take the next steps to look at it in a more holistic approach and make sure we get the best use for the site. But the inland parcel, that's the one we bought. The one on the water, we've owned that for a while, and that will remain in the hands of the lobstermen and for public use like that. But whatever goes in there, if it is developed, I would like to see us, the city, maintain use of the parking after hours and on weekends. So yes, the waterfront it's very important. As I said before, the fishing industry isn't dead. It's just different, and it's part of our 400-year future heritage, and will be part of our future for the next 400 years and beyond.
You said that sustainability and using energy was one of your top priorities. What do you believe is the urgency of preparing for the ocean rise and climate change? I know the city has a coastal climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. What would your priorities be for dealing with it?
Well, let's just put it this way. Mother Nature is going to win. You know, we can pretend that she's not, but she's going to win. Climate change is real, whether you think it was man-made or whether you think it was just a naturally occurring thing. If you look out your window, you see it. It's going on. We see it with the extreme weather. We can just see it with the tide much higher than it's ever been. But we've taken steps. Before I was mayor, we're wrapping it up now that I am mayor, with the barrier on the high school, on the wall along the canal of the high school, the barrier that's currently being completed along the sewer treatment plant. That's just buying us time. You know, we need to think long and hard. But I don't see us buying up waterfront properties and moving them inland. That's just beyond the economic ability of a city or town. So we just have to do what we can to reduce our carbon footprint, do our little piece, and take steps where we can to encourage others and make sure we have zoning in place that exceptions aren't made that allow people to build in areas they shouldn't be building. There's no magic answer. I mean, the answer was to do something 40 years ago. You know, as far as today, as I said, all we can do is change our habits and try to buy us a little time. And hopefully those in power above us at the federal level and internationally can make the decisions that will have a real impact. We in the little town of Gloucester don't have the ability to make the fossil fuel industry go away. But it's going to take real change, and that's going to be alternative energy. It's going to be more efficient cars and things like that. But locally, we're taking the steps we can. And the first step for us is the sustainability coordinator.
What are the most vulnerable areas along the waterfront?
Well, the areas we were just talking about in the DPA, I mean, a lot of that is filled land. You know, when the settlers got here, a lot of those buildings were literally ocean. And so those are the most vulnerable. We have, as I said, 63 miles of coastline. That's a lot of vulnerability that there's no way around it. You know, people are living areas that had a great view. Unfortunately, that ocean view is getting closer and closer. And again, it's out of our hands on the national, international level. We can just do what we can locally.
A new state law requires that MBTA communities create a zoning district within half a mile of public transportation in which multiple family affordable housing can be built. What qualifying housing does Gloucester already have, and what would be the best type of housing for Gloucester to concentrate on in the future?
Well, the first thing we have to concentrate on is getting in compliance with 3A. So there's been some misconceptions, misinformation, outright scare tactics about what 3A really means. The fact is, A, it is a law. When I was first in office and we had to submit our interim compliance, I was being told simply, Mayor, just ignore it. You don't have to do it. It's not required. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, released a memo earlier this year that made it very clear that 3A is not an option. It is the law. When you're looking at this one paragraph law that says things like must, shall, will, it's unambiguous that it's not a choice. The state already punished about a half a dozen cities or towns that did not comply by cutting their housing authorities. The original law or guidelines for the law stated that there were going to be 3 state grant programs that we might lose out on if we're not in compliance. That list has grown to about a dozen so far, in addition to the Attorney General saying it's the law. So we have to get in compliance. So that's first and foremost, just to dispel any misunderstanding. This is not a choice. If people are saying it's a choice and they're saying that as an elected official they will not do it, they are violating their oath of office because you raise a hand to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth. So that being said, where do we go from here? We've started the Comprehensive Planning Initiative, which is basically the new master plan. The last master plan was from 2001. That's now 22 plus years old. So when we had the last review of ordinances last March 2022, the pushback was this does nothing for affordable housing and we shouldn't do any changes until we have a master plan. So I agree with them. That's why I've kicked off this master plan. So as we go around the city for the next year or so, on September 9th, there will be the kickoff at City Hall for the Master Planning Initiative, the Comprehensive Planning Initiative. Once we've got this kicked off and we hear from people, what are their values, what are their goals, what are their desires, we can develop zoning amendments that fall in line with that. Just saying no is not going to work. Where we go from here, that's going to be a tough one. Is it going to get through this city council or the next city council? We are in interim compliance now. We have to be in full compliance by the end of 2024. So either we do it or we don't do it.
That's in compliance and changing your zoning, because right now we have 2-family homes and 1-family homes, or single-family home zoning, but
Yeah.
multiple family.
The issue, yes, what the desire of 3A is to have by right. So if you own a 1-family, you can convert it to a 2-family by right without special permits. Same from 2 to 3. Now, some of the zoning that amendments that went forward last year, which were the result of the housing production plan from 2017, some of them made sense on their own. Others, I thought, were too similar to what 3A was. I asked the council to hold off so we could just work on what we want to do for 3A. Unfortunately, they took them all up, and most of them got voted down. But as far as the other zoning amendments, we currently have, if you buy a piece of land, by right, you can build a 2-family home in certain zoning districts. If you tear down a single family, you can build a 2-family by right. But if you have a 1-family, you can't build a second unit by right. And so back to the fear factor, some people said, and they're correct, the math is, to be in compliance, we have to create 2,270 more units. We have to allow zoning that will create 2,270 units. This is a mandate to create the zoning. It is not a mandate to build. So if tomorrow the city council passed this, we're not going to see a land grab of just developers coming in.
It still has to be built.
It still has to be built. And so it's unlikely a developer is going to buy a single-family house, and the going rate now is about $600,000 to tear it down and build a 2 or 3-family house. But somebody who has kids who are just out of college and need somewhere to live might want to build a second unit for their kids. Or if they have elderly parents, they might want to build a second unit for their parents to live in. That's where we have the need. It isn't all about a dream for developers. This is about making housing available for people who are here and people who want to relocate here.
Okay, so what kind of Gloucester residents need this housing the most? You mentioned families with kids and...
It's the full range. Right now we have a shortage of even market rate properties. Forget the affordable housing. So that's what we have. We have a supply and demand issue. There's very few properties on the market, so the prices are through the roof. So it's everybody in every age bracket, every income bracket are looking for houses. And if you if there are like, I don't even know what the MLS listings look like these days, but say there's a half a dozen houses on the market, there's probably about 75 people looking. So we're constantly dealing with increased prices because the demand is so high. The 3A may help us. I do not want to see, I'll be very blunt, I do not want to see high-rise apartment buildings all over the city. I don't find them attractive. They are not in line with or in character with our city. But if you're in a neighborhood that's already got single-family colonials and multifamily colonials, I don't think it's much of a stretch to add to those units. So I think people need to really look at the facts and understand it and not fall for the scare tactics that have been out there. Do I think 3A is great? No. Do I think one size fits all? No. But we have to get into compliance. Back to the master plan. We reach compliance by hearing the input from the people citywide and develop zoning ordinances that are both compliant and within the characteristic of Gloucester.
Clearly, we can talk about housing for another hour, but I'm going to give you a minute or two now to address the voters and tell them anything that you would like them to know that we didn't cover, and ask for their vote.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for hosting today. I'm happy to be here. I thoroughly enjoy serving as your mayor. We came into office and we had a lot of pieces to pick up, just like any new administration does. We had a lot of unfinished business, whether it was the pier at Magnolia, whether it was the Green Street Playground, whether it was the police station project, whether it was the library project. We took on all of those things in spite of issues like a manhole cover exploding, a water main break, a wind turbine blade falling, all those surprises that came in over my first year in office. And we managed to start working on the initiatives that we wanted to see happen. And I think the biggest success story there is the beach reservation system, which was a gamble. I thought it was a roll of the dice whether or not it would be a plus or a minus, but it was an instant success. The traffic has been basically put down to nothing. I have a lot of work to do, and I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your help so we can keep the foot on the gas and keep the city moving forward and progressing. And if you would like to reach out to me, go through the Vote Verga website, voteverga.com. I'm happy to personally call you and chat with you. But this city means too much to me. I have grandkids here. My family came here in 1894. I want to make sure my kids and my grandkids are able to afford to live here and have a place they're proud to call home for the next decades to come. So thank you so much.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Mayor Greg Verga for agreeing to be interviewed, and 1623 Studios for providing these public service programs. Please remember to vote in the preliminary election on September 19th. The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you interviews with the 4 candidates for Gloucester City Mayor. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any candidate for public office. The preliminary election is Tuesday, September 19th. I'm June Michaels, a League member and Rockport resident. The candidate with me is Ward 2 Councillor Tracy O'Neill, who is, I believe, a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So can you tell me one accomplishment or event in your life which makes you particularly qualified to be Mayor of Gloucester?
One particular event. Well, I became Ward 2 Councillor, and we immediately had zoning amendments come up in front of the council. So I read the law, and decided it was not a good choice for Gloucester. I read as much as I could, and I still firmly believe that we need to keep our zoning laws, because we have zoning laws for a reason. We need to keep our natural resources as long as possible for our children and our grandchildren. And it opened my eyes, and it was great because I learned a lot. So
Now,
that would call that.
Was this the zoning law about the multi-family housing?
Yes.
Which is a state law that says communities that have MBTA, public transportation, have to create a zoning district within half a mile of the public transportation in which multi-family affordable housing can be built. Does Gloucester already have any housing that qualifies for that?
That law specifically states that there is no provision for affordable housing, and there's no provision for elderly housing. So it's not affordable. It is not.
But just that it's multi-family housing.
Correct.
And most Gloucester residential districts are single-family or maybe two-family is allowed.
Most likely, yes. Now we're talking about the downtown area. I live within a half mile of the train station. Chapter 40A, Section 3A, Paragraph 7, I believe, states there is no restriction on the size of the bedrooms, there's no restriction on the number of bedrooms, no restriction on the number of occupants, and must be suitable for families with children. I have children, I have nothing against children. It equates to, the law states a minimum of 2,270 multifamily units. So two-family houses don't count. It has to be three-family or more. And it has to be a minimum of 2,270 multifamily units. So if it's suitable for families with children, which it must be, it has to be at least 2 bedrooms. Legally, in the state of Massachusetts, you can have 5 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. 5 times 2,270 is 11,350 more people starting within a half mile of the train station. It can be contiguous, which means it spider webs out, but it begins at the train station, 11,000 people. That's increasing our population by over a third. We have 29,729 people at the last count. 11,000 is over 1/3 increase in our population. And
So would that be an increase building all those units, or would it count two-family houses that became three-family houses?
it would count the 2 families that became 3 families.
Okay. If you become mayor, what would be, what one issue would be the first one that you would want to tackle, your top priority for the first year?
I do have 2 top priorities, but it's the budget. I believe we're overspending, and I believe we're spending in the wrong places.
What are some of the wrong places?
Well, they paved Eastern Avenue. They grinded it and paved it for, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, the number's eluding me.
Anyway, it cost a bundle of money.
Yes, I believe it was $100 and something thousand. I travel Eastern Avenue multiple times a day, not one pothole. I drove by the sewer treatment plant the other day. Now, I don't know, there may be a reason for it, but they're putting a rock facade on the cement wall of the sewer treatment plant.
Isn't the sewer treatment plant going to be replaced?
I think it's going to be upgraded.
Upgraded.
Right.
Okay.
I believe I would definitely get into the budget line by line with the department heads and have them explain things to me as to why we're doing things. And I want to decrease the budget 2% a year for 5 years. I believe that's doable. And 10% increase in our water bill is astronomical. It's too much for people. People are hurting. People can't pay their electric bill, and we're spending money frivolously, in my opinion.
So the budget is one priority, and what would be your second?
The zoning,
The zoning.
absolutely.
Okay.
And then the creek, the pollution from the runoff, and
That's all right. There's
ahead.
two priorities.
okay.
Now that a new elementary school is a reality, what would be your top priority as mayor for education in Gloucester?
Well, we are low on the scholastic totem pole in Massachusetts. So whether we have to send teachers for more training, or if we need more teachers, or if there's something else we can do to get our grades up, to get our children ready for college and the trades. I mean, I know people who are doing very well in the trades, so not everyone has to go to college.
Okay. The Municipal Harbor and Designated Port Area Master Plan, I4C, and so forth, was prepared in 2014. It was supposed to go for 10 years. So in 2024, it is expected to be reviewed and revised. What do you think is the best use of that area, the downtown harbor area, for commercial fishing, for public use, for other ocean-related industries?
I believe it should be for commercial fishing and for public use. It is a designated port area, and whatever goes there needs to be water dependent. It's marine industrial, so it needs to be an industrial venture.
Another ocean question. What do you believe is the urgency of preparing for ocean rise and climate change?
It's very urgent. I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, it's urgent. I taught the boot camp workout on Good Harbor Beach from 1999 to 2019, so 20 years.
And what did that involve?
Oh, we worked, it was a military style workout on Good Harbor Beach, 6 a.m.
Oh, okay.
And we would park in the parking lot, and many days there would be puddles in the parking lot when it hadn't rained. So way back then, something was amiss. So this has been happening very slowly and very surely, and now it's happening faster. So it's kind of like a snowball going downhill. It gets gaining speed and velocity.
So the city has prepared a coastal climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. What would be your priority for carrying it out?
I
What would
have
you do
not
first?
read the coastal climate plan. I apologize. I've working 3 jobs and campaigning, so I have not read the report in full. So, what was your original question?
Well, what was on the urgency, but what do you think are the most, what parts of Gloucester would be affected? Where are the vulnerable spots in Gloucester that?
There are many. The high school for one. The sewer treatment plant for 2. I mean, they're basically in the same area. Our beaches are eroding, and that is a huge revenue source for our city if we lose the beaches. What else? I mean, we're all so very vulnerable to it. You see what happened in Maui, right? They overbuilt, and the electric grid just couldn't handle it, and disaster.
Back to the waterfront, the C4, I4C.
I4C2.
I4C. I'll get it right.
It's okay.
If I do enough interviews, I'll get that one right eventually. That's a piece of property that's on the waterfront. How would you go about developing that or using that, taking into consideration the fact that it's on fill and it's susceptible?
To be honest, I'm perfectly happy the way it is. To be brutally honest, I'm perfectly happy the way it is. If anything goes there, it has to be water dependent. It has to be. I know there's a group that works with fishermen working with farmers. Maybe that would work there. Maybe a kitchen that would teach people how to use less popular fish species, train people how to cook it. So something like that. Other than that, I don't want to see a big structure on that piece of land because it is filled. And quite honestly, it's the only place on Roger Street where I know I live on the sea.
Because you can walk across the property.
Because I can see the ocean from, I can see the ocean. It's the only place I can see the ocean from, on Roger Street. So, I have no skin in the fishing game. My father was a meat cutter. My siblings have nothing to do with the fishing industry. I just see, we tout the fact that we're America's oldest seaport, America's oldest fishing port. And I don't believe the fishermen are getting a fair shake. I really don't believe that. They're being regulated. They're being regulated to death. And I feel for them. They're good, honest, hardworking people. And they don't want to hand out. They want to work, and they want to earn their living. And everywhere they turn, their hands are getting tied. So
well, what could a mayor do? What could you do as mayor to help the fishermen?
That's a good question. I would speak with our state representatives and see what we can do to stop tying their hands. Ease up on some regulations.
Well, that winds up all of the questions that were prepared by the league. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to talk about any other issue you want to bring up and to ask the voters for their vote.
Okay, so it seems like we covered everything. My name is Tracy O'Neill. I am a candidate for mayor. I'm asking for your vote on September 19th. I was born and raised in Gloucester. I have a successful business here, and I have had that for over 20 years. I went through the Gloucester public school systems, as did my children, and I'm very proud of my children. I love this city, and I love the people in it. It's a beautiful place, and we're very, very, very lucky to be here. And we should cherish our open spaces and our waterfront and our trees. Once it's gone forever. You can't get it back. So my name is Tracy O'Neill, and I'm asking for your vote on September 19th. Thank you.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Tracy O'Neill for agreeing to be interviewed and 1623 Studios for providing these public service programs. Please remember to vote in the preliminary election on Tuesday, September 19th. The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you interviews with the 4 candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any candidates for public office. The preliminary election is Tuesday, September 19th. I'm June Michaels, a Rockport resident. The candidate with me is Mary Ellen Rose, who has a doctorate in health education and is the former Gloucester Health Director. First question is, what one accomplishment in your life or event in your life makes you particularly qualified to be Mayor of Gloucester?
Thank you for that question, June. I appreciate it. I would have to say that my work at the Department of State as the Director of Health Promotion there would probably qualify for that answer, because I was in charge of creating programs for the entire Department of State's 16 annexes, I believe, that were around Washington, D.C., as well as the embassies around the world. And it was a challenging job that the State Department, they call themselves state there, had really struggled with for years to get off the ground and to be effective. Hillary Clinton had basically pointed to the Bureau of Medicine and said, this is going to be your job, and there were no enthusiastic takers. So when I was in there, I was challenged with not only creating a program, but creating data collection systems and bringing together everything from the dozens of insurance carriers that cover the federal employees, to creating programs, presentations for employees that were audiences of 300, 150 every quarter, and doing educational programming for all of the federal employees across the Department of State. It was a lot of juggling, and it was fascinating work. And one of my favorite recommendations that I got was from an executive director there who I had never even worked with, but who had heard about my work and was really impressed with how I had been able to pull together a very disparate system and make it functional in a fairly short amount of time.
What size staff did you have that you were supervising?
I had contractors, dozens of contractors underneath of me that I was responsible for managing. But you don't have a staff. You work. I was the department lead. I worked with a federal employee who had oversight over me. I was a contractor. So I was pretty much thrown in there to manage it all and figure it out with the resources that I could amass. And so what I did was pull in instructors from the industry all over Washington, D.C. as volunteers. I used the insurance companies to provide us with input and education programs wherever they could. It just took a lot of creativity and know-how. You had to have really known health promotion and know what your audience needs, not only for their physical health, but also their intellectual and emotional health, and pulling them together as a community, even though they were all over the world. And you have your foreign service agents and you have your domestic agents, and it's a very broad group
like a
population.
very complex job.
It was a very complex job.
So, if you were elected Mayor of Gloucester, what would be your number one priority to get moving on in your first year as mayor?
Well, without a doubt, my priority is to take a look at where we are with regard to what I call lanes of responsibility. For everyone to be able to articulate what they're responsible for and who answers to them. So that when we have problems throughout the city, whether it's a pothole that needs to be fixed, or a beach problem, or a neighbor problem, or a health issue, every citizen in the city should know who to call, who's responsible for addressing that issue, how long it should take to get that issue resolved, and who would be accountable in the end if it doesn't get resolved. So my focus is on accountability for things that we need to address right off the bat. more than anything.
Chain of command for getting things done.
Yes, chain of command. It's very important that the residents know what the chain of command is, and whether you're you know, a person who just wants a personal problem solved, or if you see a problem that's affecting the entire city. I think it's important that you know who to call and what you can expect to get done.
So now that the new elementary school is a reality, what would be your #1 priority as mayor for education in Gloucester?
Well, as an educator myself, I am very focused on what we're preparing our children of today to do tomorrow. We need to implement what we understand about how children learn from kindergarten through high school, and the different learning modalities that are available in different methods that work for students. We have an excellent teaching staff in this city, and I want to see them compensated appropriately so that they will want to stay and do the hard work that they do and continue to make their career here in Gloucester, as well as the paras. I think that it's really important, the people that we charge with educating our children, that they feel good about what they do, not only as their career, but that they can continue to live in Gloucester because they can afford to be here. And if they're not compensated well enough to do that, I think that creates a lot of unnecessary stress. So kids learn from their teachers' attitudes, and growing up I had some fantastic teachers. My second grade teacher to this day is a dear friend, Ginny Mosiri, and I have valued what she introduced me to as far as my love of learning in second grade for my entire life. And it's really, yeah,
Support the teachers.
Yeah, support the teachers, absolutely, because they, as far as I'm concerned, the students are at the top of the pyramid, then followed by the teachers and the paras. And everything else falls beneath that. The whole purpose of education is to take care of the students, to prepare them for life, having their academics as well as their life skills so that they can become productive citizens. It's critical.
So in 2014, the city put together a municipal harbor and designated port area master plan. And this was to go for 10 years, and it is up for review and revision at the end of 2024. How do you think the area, the C5, I4, something like that.
R2D2 we call it.
I4C3
I know
should be preserved as public waterfront or developed for new industries, housing, industries compatible with commercial fishing, or what?
Well, as I understand, it is designated as marine industrial, and that is not our choice as to what we can do with it. I, as the daughter of a fisherman, granddaughter and sister of a fisherman, I very much want to see our fishing industry thrive. We may never get back to where we were when I was raised here, but I think we have this unique opportunity to continue our maritime history here in Gloucester, and it would be foolish and irresponsible to let that go. So to turn our waterfront into anything other than a productive working waterfront would be a waste of resources that hold us unique in this city. I've been all over this country, and there are tourism waterfronts everywhere, and we cannot afford to just become another tourism waterfront because it's not special enough. We have the oldest commercial fishing seaport in the country, and to lose that designation because we've altered our focus, I think would be a tragedy.
So, another ocean question.
Okay.
What do you believe is the urgency of preparing for ocean rise and climate change? The city has a coastal climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. What would your priorities be? So what is the urgency, and what do you think you would like to see accomplished in your first term as mayor?
Well, of all the priorities that I would stack for my first term as mayor, I would ask the citizens what their priorities are, because it's not what I think is important, it's what they think is important. And I've talked to a lot of the citizens, and global warming and sea rise has not come up very frequently, if at all. So my focus, while I care about the ocean rising and the potential impact on the city of Gloucester, I think that the best thing that we can do here in this city with our control over what impact we have on this environment are things as simple as use and reuse and replace. Use less packaging. Don't drive your car all the time. Use your feet. Use a bike. Turn off your lights. Be energy efficient. There are things that we can do to help this climate and this globe stay healthier that do not involve necessarily big strategies and changes or tons of money invested by this city. We have some other priorities I think that are more lasting today that we need to pay attention to. I've spent a lot of time in Washington, and that's a wonderful issue, and there are countries all over this globe struggling with that issue and how to address it. Here in Gloucester, I think our best attack is what is important to the city, the people that live here, and what can we do to make this city less vulnerable to global climate change. And that begins with using less energy and being more cognizant of your impact on the environment, your personal impact.
The state has a new law requiring that communities with MBTA services create a zoning district within half a mile of public transportation in which multiple family affordable housing can be built. What housing does Gloucester already have that meets this criteria, and what would be the best type of housing for Gloucester to focus on?
Right. Well, this is a very complex issue, and Gloucester has a significant amount of housing designated as affordable. It doesn't necessarily qualify for what the TOD is asking for, and we evidently also don't have a complete inventory of that affordable housing. So we really need I need some more data before I can have an intelligent conversation about what would be the best road to take. I do know that with the influx of more home buying, and the building that is going up around here is not affordable housing, and the opportunities that we've had to even make a portion of developments affordable housing have been contentious, at least. I think that it needs to be addressed because we can't lose the population that is, for instance, the service population who are making minimum wage. Where are they going to live? We can't expect them to live in Lynn or wherever it's less expensive to live and then come to live rather. And
That's a terrible commute.
Yes, it's a terrible commute, but there's the pizza, the new owner of the pizza parlor on the boulevard. They all commute down here from, I don't know if it's Malden, but it's 45 to 50 minutes. And every one of them on that staff commute here because they cannot afford to live in Gloucester. He bought the business, this gentleman bought the business, and he simply can't afford to live here. And I think that's a real travesty that we don't have enough, whether it's rental or purchasing of homes for people who live with modest incomes. You know, you're even talking about your teachers, your firemen, your policemen. Where are they all going to live if every home in this city is 700,000 and above? We need to build affordable housing, but I don't think we're going to do that by continuing to build expensive housing and trying to offset what the state is asking us to do is this 10% offset. Well, the more expensive houses we build, the more that offset number has to go up. So it's a problem that isn't solvable as far as I see. I'm trying to understand it better, like I said, but I would like to see
more housing for people who actually work here.
Yes, absolutely, and yes, for people who and people who are willing to take care of their homes because they own their homes. You know, it's the pride of ownership goes a long way in housing. So it's not just taking care of those who are renting, but it's taking care of those who want to purchase a home and having those homes available for purchase.
How serious is homelessness in Gloucester?
Well, as the director of the health department, during the winter, we had an effort to try and get some clothing and mittens out to the homeless population because I was told it was in the hundreds. But when we went out to actually look and help the homeless, there weren't even dozens. So what we have found is that people are displaced from their homes because of the rental situation or parents who had children living with them. There's a whole variety of reasons for people to suddenly become homeless, but as far as long-term homelessness, I have not heard that we have a very large problem. In the summertime, people live throughout the city in different encampments, and I know that our police do a good job of trying to take care of those areas, because you don't want it to become a pattern. We have space, or should have space, in our facilities around this city for people who are without homes, and we try to accommodate them. There are places also, south of us that probably we could help them find shelter, but I don't think that we have such a homeless problem here that we can accommodate those that are living without a roof over their head.
Well, that's all the questions I had prepared from the
okay.
League. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to address the voters and tell them anything more you'd like to say about yourself and ask for their vote.
Okay. So what I'd like to ask voters is to really consider what you want your mayor to do and to be as a person. There's a lot of complexity in this city, and you can't possibly appreciate it until you're in that position, and I am very well aware of that. I know that I have a lot to learn, but I want you to know that I have been in very complex situations before and have done just well. As a matter of fact, done quite well, to not only resolve them, but to make sure that they're sustainable after they've been resolved. I think that this city needs a strong leader who will stand up to the influx of people who want to come into this city and just reap the benefits of the beauty and the natural resources and the opportunities that we have without considering the impact on the general population. We have so much to take care of in this city, and I think it begins with our residents that live here. I want to see the residents that are here thrive. I want to see them be able to stay here for generations. And I want to see a city where they have a voice in every bit of this government, from council meetings to advisory capacity to being able to speak up at a meeting, a public meeting, without feeling as though they're going to be intimidated or shamed for doing so. I think it is critical that the voice of the people of this city be heard. And as your mayor, I will ensure that that happens, that you will always be heard, that my door will always be open, and that I will do everything I possibly can to make sure that we protect this city that we all love so much, for not just today, but for the future. Thank you for that time.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Mary Ellen Rose for agreeing to be interviewed, and 1623 Studios for providing these public service programs. Please remember to vote. September 19th is the preliminary election. The League of Women Voters of Cape Ann is pleased to bring you interviews with the 4 candidates for Mayor of Gloucester. The League is a nonpartisan organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not endorse any candidate for public office. The preliminary election is Tuesday, September 19th. I'm June Michaels, a Rockport resident. The candidate with me is Francisco Sclafani, known for his advocacy for keeping essential services at Addison Gilbert and making his 9th run for mayor. The first question is, can you name one accomplishment in your life which makes you particularly qualified to be mayor of Gloucester?
Yes, I particularly remember saving a 9-year-old girl from drowning. My friend had invited me to be a guest on a boat, and God put me there. I was on the boat come in, and this girl had slipped on her father and mother's boat, and she had went right between the boat and the dock. And I went down and I said, gee, God, I'm wearing my best shirt I said, and then I seen bubbles coming up, and I said, and her brother wasn't saying anything. Her brother didn't even care. And I said, gee, I had to get on my chest and stick my hand in the dirty water, and I'm feeling around. I said, gee, why are you putting me through this? And then all of a sudden, my fingers just touched her shoulder. She had jumped in the water. Her ankles were in about 6-8 inches of mud. She was drowning right under the lip of the dock. And have to believe it, God gave me the strength. I just grabbed her with one hand, and I pulled her up. And she was screaming when she came, and her mother thought I had done something, but her father said thank you. And then I told my friend who had invited me to be a guest on the boat, because you want to be a guest on a boat, because if the boat hits an iceberg, what do you care? You're a guest on a boat. So, but I always remember I saved that. And then there was, I saved it.
That's a great story.
That's a great story, yeah. So I always said, gee, maybe that would get me into heaven, who knows?
So, if you're elected mayor, what one issue would be your number one priority to get going in the first year of being mayor?
I really think that the city of Gloucester has the opportunity to retake both Addison Gilbert Hospital and Cable Memorial Hospital by eminent domain. And if we are ever successful, it's a far-reaching, we'll bring back two, right now there's none, two fully staffed North Shore maternity wards. And if we're successful taking those hospitals by eminent domain, we'll bring back two. Right now, there's none. 2 intensive care units. And last but not least, we will bring back 2. There's only 1 emergency room. And I would say, vote for me. The life you save may be your own or somebody you love.
Now that the new elementary school is a reality,
Yep.
What would be your number one priority as mayor for education in Gloucester?
Well, first, I really wanted to repurpose the closed East Elementary School. I really wanted to dedicate it as the new East Memorial Fire Station. If you ever study facts, there's always been a fire station on that block for over 300 years. The original fire station's at the top of the hill. And Chapel Street is a vital strategic spot. If you know anything about Ward, East Gloucester, it's only one road going in and one road coming out, and it's densely populated. All the buildings are made out of wood. It's a strategic place that, of course, we might have to refurbish the building because the building's in good shape. And I really wanted to supervise the taking out all that children's playground toy. I don't know if you've ever been down. Have you been down? It's got, I don't know, $100,000 worth of playground equipment. And they put a dumpster next to it. I hope they didn't tear it out and throw it in the dumpster. I would have it relocated to Stage 4 Park. And then I think that's it. And so that's about it.
So repurposing the existing
Repurposing the same existing building.
The city has a municipal harbor and designated port area master plan, which was approved in 2014
Yep.
it was supposed to be for 10 years, so it's up for review and revision in the end of 2024.
Right.
How do you think the area should be preserved as public waterfront and or developed for new industries or new use?
Well, if people make the fatal mistake of rezoning Gloucester's inner harbor, that entire Gloucester fishing industry infrastructure is gone. Because there's no money in, they can do everything with 1 or 2 buildings. But you see what makes Gloucester special, and I'll probably work towards trying to make Gloucester a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Because you see, we're on the inside and we say, oh, we take it all for granted. But as soon as you go past it, there's no place on earth like Cape Ann. Rockport, there's no place like that. So to have urban renewal come in and just say, you know what, let's build all condos on the water. That's what you got in Newburyport. You got that everywhere. I really think that you have to listen to the people, and you have to remember to preserve the past. And I think by seeking a UNESCO World Heritage Site, that would permanently protect and preserve, the inner harbor, as opposed to, gee, we're going to tear all this down, and we're going to, seek condos or hotels or whatever they're going to put there.
When you say listen to the people, how do you reconcile the different opinions of fishermen and housing and tourism and other marine.
I do listen to
industries.
fishermen. It's actually, I remember I asked my grandfather, who was a fisherman. I wanted to be a Gloucester fisherman. But then he told me, no, get yourself an education, and then someday the city of Gloucester may need you. And that's why I'm here, you know.
Another ocean-related question.
Yep.
What do you believe is the urgency of preparing for ocean rise and climate change? The city has a coastal climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. What would your priorities for
My
carrying that out?
priorities would be petitioning the state to move the state boat ramp to the state fish pier. Because most people who launch a boat want to go in the outer harbor, like during the schooners race, and then they want out. But right now, if you go on the state boat ramp, the bridge has to come up. I mean, this is a maritime city. The bridge, the boats have right away over the cars. And you know, I'm sure you've been stuck for hours or 15 minutes or half an hour waiting for that bridge to go down. And it has to go up with every boat that wants to get into the outer harbor. So if you had the state fish, boat ramp at the state fish pier, well, then they would just launch there, and they're already in the outer harbor. So then that bridge doesn't have to go up. And then all that pollution and waiting and time lost. I mean, that's how you deal with climate change, is you first deal with it in your, little neck of the woods, and then it goes out. I really think that reducing the number of times the bridge has to go up would have benefited generations. I mean, right now, that's the answer to that problem, is to have the state boat ramp moved to the state fish pier.
Well, I can see that would be a good change in the way the harbor is used, but I don't quite see how that addresses ocean rise and climate change.
Well, I'm Catholic. I believe in God. God wants to make the icebergs melt. I mean, there's a war going on right now. That's why the temperature is so hot. That's why we had the hottest year. People don't realize when you explode a bomb, there's heat given off, and they're exploding 10,000 bombs a day. And that heat's just building up, and it's just killing everything around here, changing the weather and all that. So really, they should outlaw war, but I don't think you could, but that's what you should do.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, a good idea. Thank you.
A new state law requires that MBTA communities create a zoning district within half a mile of public transportation in which multiple family affordable housing can be built. What housing does Gloucester already have that fits this criteria, and what would be the best thing to do to meet the state mandate?
I really don't want to overpopulate Gloucester. I've run the numbers in my head, 275 buildable units around each railroad station. Notice people aren't talking about West Gloucester. That's another railroad station. That would be another 275 buildable units that the state demands.
Well, there is a whole complex of housing there at the other station, isn't there, in West Gloucester?
It's all single families, and they don't want single families. They want, So anyway, I really don't want to overpopulate Gloucester, because in 400 years, the population of Gloucester has never exceeded 28,000. And the reason why is our limited supply of fresh drinkable water. We have the aquifers, the reservoirs on top of the land. We have the aquifer underneath. A lot of people are on wells. We just can't if you study Cape Ann, it's been in a state of extreme drought for decades. So when somebody says, gee, I'm going to shove 550 buildable units down your throat, and if there were like 6 people per unit, that's 33,500 people. And now they're going to bring cars, say 15,000 cars. I don't know if you've seen traffic, the horrific congested traffic bottlenecks. You're just sitting in your car for like half an hour, 45 minutes. Why? Now you want to add more people. It's just, I'm all against overpopulating Gloucester.
Well, is the idea to provide housing to attract new people?
Yeah.
Or is the idea to deal with the problem of homelessness and
I think that a lot of
housing?
people don't realize, I hate to interrupt you, is that the Gloucester Housing Authority doesn't even make the decision who gets into their apartments. I've walked to each one of those apartments, and I would say, honestly, that 80% of them are people from other countries. I mean, they're not Gloucester residents. So if you made more affordable housing, they would bring in more people from other countries. You know what I mean? I'm not putting down people. I'm just saying that Gloucester has no control over its housing authority.
It's need-based, not who you are or where you're from.
Right, that's what it is. You got it. I mean, I'm just saying that, you say, oh, we got to bring all these people in. Well, what about the water supply? Because once the water supply runs low, and you've seen pictures of some of the reservoirs running bone dry, and what happens is it threatens our survival. That's why when I look at Rockport, they're going to accept 8,000 buildable, people in Rockport. I mean, the traffic alone. I mean, that's why I think all of Cape Ann should be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so that it's permanently preserved. So it's just the way you see it. Even when we're gone, it still stays. You perfectly preserve it for countless future generations. You see people walking around. I really think we need a public bathroom on Main Street, because all these tourists, they got to go to the bathroom sooner or later.
And there isn't anything on Main Street?
There's nothing on Main Street. And I was surprised because, women have to go to the bathroom, more than men, but supposedly, unless you got a problem, which I don't want to get into. But I'm just saying that we need more public bathrooms for whoever, the tourist, you, me. I mean, when you're downtown, I asked the lady when I had my, it's colonoscopy. I said, how's this colonoscopy, colon cancer work? She says, people don't want to go to the bathroom somewhere else. They want to wait and hold it, and then they don't have to go when they get home. And what happens is it just lays in there, and then you get the cancer of the colon. So I didn't want to.
You talked about the water. If we had another drought year like last year,
Yes.
What are some of the things that the city government should do about it?
Right now there's a boom in condominiums. I don't know if you've seen the condominium project in Winneshiek Beach. I mean, that's going to be at over 100 condos. But the sewerage system doesn't go that far. So I'm sure they're going to try to find a candidate who's going to say, oh, let's extend the... if you've ever been down Winneshiek Beach, the pipe's only like 6-8 inches. That's it. All the water, all them houses, everybody... I mean, I'm sure you must have remembered low water pressure. A couple of years back, you went home, you couldn't take a shower. It just dribbled out. I changed the pipe from the street to my house. It was low pressure. Everybody had low pressure. And sometimes I come home from wherever I am and I want to take a bath or, a shower. And I'm not going to risk me losing my water pressure. As a matter of fact, I talked about water towers, because what happens is the pump breaks sometimes. If you had water towers, you'd have water for another 2 days, which gives them time to fix the problem. But nowadays, the pump goes, nobody has water, and we just sit there, for 2 days with no water.
Okay, we've used up my questions. I'm going to give you a minute or two to address the voters out there and tell them why they should vote for you.
Forgive me. I have every intention of, and I'm sorry, June, I have every intention of impeaching Governor Moore Healey, no disrespect, and I have every intention of impeaching Lieutenant Governor Tim Driscoll, only because this is just unconstitutional. These mandated population, you got to take all these people. As I said, the number of people that are going to be brought into this, illiterate migrants, 33,500. You do that math. And then, of course, these people, you're going to have to build another 3-4 schools to educate them. And they don't have any sponsors. They don't have any job prospects. The state's just dumping them here. And you've got to remember, Gloucester's an island. We are limited. We only got 2 bridges. They're going to take one bridge out, which I hope they make the same bridge out of stainless steel. Would last forever. I mean, they're going to, they got $50 million for a bridge. Once they take that bridge out, we only got that one bridge, which sometimes had to spend 45 minutes just from Nichols Candy, 45 minutes just to get over into the Rotary. So we actually don't have the water for more people. The roads won't take it. The roads are like 2-lane ox paths. It's not going to get any bigger. And I'm wasting my life sitting in traffic. I went to the dentist the other day. It was only 2 miles. I should have walked, but I didn't want to be all sweaty. And so it took me 45 minutes. So 45 minutes to go 2 miles. So I learned take the highway, and I got there in 12 minutes. But, you know, you don't want to go through downtown Gloucester, you know, when it's in the height of the traffic hour.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank Francisco
Thank you.
Sclafani for agreeing to be interviewed,
Yep.
and 1623 Studios for providing these public service programs. Please vote in the preliminary election on September 19th.